In recent years, archaeology has come alive, revealing secrets buried for centuries beneath sand, water, and stone. A city beneath the sea, unknown temples, and forgotten civilizations have resurfaced from the mists of time, proving that human history is far from over, and that the most astonishing discoveries are yet to come. Underwater city off the coast of Egypt. Off the coast of ancient Alexandria, where the waves of the Mediterranean slowly roll over the silt and rocks, lies a city that vanished more than 2,000 years ago, the very same Heraclean whispered about in chronicles and legends. In 2023, an international expedition discovered new temple sites and shipwrecks, confirming that an entire urban fabric, preserving the memory of trade and cults, lies beneath the water. Initial clues came from fishermen and chance finds in shallow water, but only with the introduction of modern underwater scanners and underwater archaeology were straight street lines, rows of columns, and dense clusters of artifacts revealed beneath the silt. This allowed researchers to attribute the ruins to the structure of a port metropolis, where temple complexes stood alongside commercial docks, and each new dive brought to the surface artifacts preserved in the anoxic conditions of the silt. An archaeological team working on the site in 2023 recovered elements of temple architecture, statues of fragmentary gods, bronze ornaments, and stone anchors from the seabed. Analysis of the location of the finds revealed that the destruction was sudden. Ships were sunk in one area, shrines contained objects abandoned on altars, and everyday items indicated that people had not managed to take the most essential items. Scientists have put forward several hypotheses about the causes of the disaster, and the most convincing version is the combination of a strong earthquake and the coastal collapse that followed it, when the rising wave covered the coastal neighborhoods, carried away the piers and buried streets and temples under the silt. This scenario is consistent with the dating obtained from organic remains and materials, where a layer of abrupt sedimentation indicates a dramatic natural event. Of particular significance are the recovered fragments of written signs and iconography on the ruins of the walls. Inscriptions, port seals, and religious symbols allow us to compare the administrative and religious functions of individual sections of the city, while the discovery of amphorae containing oil and wine confirms that Heracleion was a hub of maritime trade, through which goods were transported that connected Egypt with the coast and islands of the Mediterranean. The raised statues, carved from dense granite, were found to be remarkably well preserved. The faces of the deities and river gods are discernible, and traces of polishing indicate the high skill of the stonecutters. This suggests that the city was not just a commercial port, but also an important religious center, where the cult of rivers and seas was intertwined with state rituals, making Heracleion a key to understanding the interaction of nature, faith, and economics in antiquity. Work with underwater archaeologists has shown that most areas have not yet been excavated, and that beneath layers of silt there may be archives and documents written on material that is better preserved underwater than on land. Therefore, the hope of discovering papyri, or other written media, remains justified, as such finds could change our understanding of trade routes and religious ties in the region. Each new dive brings to the surface not just an object but a fragment of the life of an entire community. Children's toys, fragments of clothing, household ceramics, and food remains speak of the habits and rhythms of everyday life, and it is in these details that archaeologists discover the truth about the people whose destinies were forever linked to this coastal catastrophe. Today, Heracleion is not an open-air museum, but a memory laboratory, where underwater and aerial photography combines with laboratory analysis and restoration. Although much of the city still slumbers beneath the silt, the discoveries have already proven one thing: the history of the ancient Mediterranean is more complex and richer than previously thought, and the sea holds answers to questions that scholars are only just learning to formulate. New chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza. The Great Pyramid of Giza has towered over the desert for over 4,000 years, like a silent guardian of human memory. Its walls have survived dynasties, wars, and catastrophes. But even today, when science has penetrated the farthest corners of the planet, the heart of this stone mountain remains unexplored. In 2023, an international scanning project confirmed what many archaeologists had been hesitant to believe. A previously unknown cavity, approximately 9 meters long, exists within the pyramid, hidden between massive blocks, where no one had stepped since its construction. The discovery was the result of years of research by Egyptian and European scientists. They used muon tomography, a method that records the movement of elementary particles passing through the thickness of the rock. This allowed them to create a three-dimensional map of the interior, and where calculations had indicated a solid wall, a void suddenly appeared. This anomalous volume was located above the so-called Grand Gallery, the central corridor leading to the king's chamber, and was shaped like an oblong hall with smooth borders. When the data was confirmed by several independent systems, it became clear. The pyramid concealed another chamber, unknown to any explorer of previous centuries. The official announcement was made in March 2023, and the news instantly spread around the world. Egyptian authorities confirmed the authenticity of the results and announced that access to the new chamber would be carefully planned to avoid any risk to the structure's integrity. From that moment on, an atmosphere of scientific precision and mythology surrounded the discovery. After all, the Great Pyramid has always been perceived not simply as a tomb, but as a code encoded in stone. Researchers were hesitant to jump to sweeping conclusions. Initial hypotheses suggested the discovered cavity could have been a technological element created to lighten the weight above the gallery and prevent collapse. However, calculations show that the void has an extremely regular shape and precisely defined proportions, meaning its significance goes beyond simple engineering. Unique acoustic studies have revealed an unusual sound distribution within the pyramid. Resonances matching the frequencies of the human voice are recorded near the discovered chamber, leading to the hypothesis that it had a ritual purpose. The chamber may have been used for ceremonies associated with the ascension of the pharaoh's spirit to heaven. Archaeologists are cautiously comparing the structure of Giza with other pyramids of the Old Kingdom. No other structure of that time has revealed such closed spaces without passages or staircases. This makes the new discovery unprecedented. The interior volume is calculated with mathematical precision, corresponding to the golden ratio, which may have had a sacred meaning for the architects of ancient Egypt. Belief in the harmony of numbers connected the earthly and the divine, and the pyramid was considered a place of transition where geometry becomes a form of prayer. In preparation for further research, engineers developed a miniature robot capable of passing through a tiny opening and transmitting images in real time. Its testing lasted for several months, as any contact with the pyramid wall requires extreme caution. The first launch is planned for the end of 2025, when the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities completes work to strengthen the corridors. Scientists hope the chamber will reveal clues about construction techniques, lost knowledge, or ritual functions. But they don't rule out the possibility that the discovery could upend our understanding of the pyramid's purpose. Of particular interest is the question of why the chamber was left completely isolated. If they wanted to hide it, why? Perhaps the builders left it empty to create a symbolic space, the abode of the Ka, the divine soul of the pharaoh as it left the body. There are pyramid texts that speak of a staircase of light by which the spirit ascends to the stars. The new chamber is located precisely in the area where, in ancient myths, the pharaoh went after death. The coincidence seems too precise to be a coincidence. Other experts believe the cavity may have been intended to store objects associated with the afterlife. If so, then beneath the layers of stone, there may still be vessels, symbolic artifacts, or even texts written on papyri that were sealed away forever. Archaeologists compare the current situation to the discovery of Tutankhamun's hidden tomb in the 1920s, but acknowledge that an even more cautious approach is needed. Back then, 100 years ago, archaeology was just learning to preserve the past. Now it strives to preserve every speck of dust. Scholars are discussing how the confirmation of the new chamber not only expands our knowledge of the pyramid, but also changes our understanding of the entire engineering tradition of ancient Egypt. The pyramid's creators built not only monuments, but also complex three-dimensional systems, where every void had meaning. Some researchers even suggest that the Great Pyramid is not a burial site, but a timekeeping instrument, aligned with the stars and the cycles of Sirius. If so, the discovered chamber could be part of an ancient mechanism recording the movement of celestial bodies. For now, the pyramid continues to hold its secrets. In the evening, when the sun sets over the desert's edge and shadows fall across the limestone blocks, it's hard to believe that somewhere within this stone colossus, an undiscovered space pulsates. It could contain only emptiness, or perhaps the traces of a human hand striving to approach eternity. The Great Pyramid remains a symbol that even after 4,000 years, man still hears in its silence the breath of a mystery that neither reason nor faith can fully explain. Oldest human DNA in Greenland. In the far north, where ice holds the breath of eternity, in 2022, scientists made a discovery that revolutionized our understanding of the origins of life in the Arctic. In sedimentary rock samples extracted from ice deposits in northern Greenland, they found fragments of ancient DNA dating back 2 million years. This discovery became the earliest evidence of an ecosystem inhabited by animals and plants capable of surviving in what was then a mild, humid, and fertile climate. What was once considered a dead desert was once a verdant valley where mastodons grazed and trees grew that have long since disappeared from the face of the earth. A team of researchers from the University of Copenhagen, working in northern Greenland, extracted soil samples from a permafrost layer more than 120 meters thick. They were drawn to the tiny biomolecules preserved in the frozen rock, where the icy moisture prevented time from destroying the genetic code. When the results were processed, laboratories in Europe and Asia confirmed that these were not just plant remains, but full-fledged traces of ancient animal DNA, including reindeer, lemmings, geese, and even representatives of the elephant family, reminiscent of mammoths but with unique genetic characteristics unknown to science. The material's age was determined based on uranium isotope sequences and climate layers dating back to a period when Arctic temperatures were approximately 10 degrees warmer than today. This period, known as the Eocene-Pleistocene transition, marked a time when Greenland's natural environment resembled a taiga, with dense forests and flowering plants. For the first time, scientists have obtained direct evidence that the area now dominated by permafrost was once home to a multitude of species, many of which became extinct long before the arrival of humans. The oldest DNA was found not in bones, as had previously been the case, but in ordinary sediment particles. Microscopic strands of genetic code which had absorbed the life of a vanished world were preserved in grains of sand, clay, and dust. Researchers used sequencing with ultra-sensitive reagents capable of reading even fragments of several dozen nucleotides long. This took months of work, as any modern contaminants had to be excluded. Each sample was tested multiple times until the data from different laboratories converged. The most astonishing thing was that the extracted DNA contained traces of organisms no one expected to find so far north. These included the ancestors of mayflies, root plants similar to poplars and birches, and even algae characteristic of temperate climates. This meant that Greenland at that time was part of a living world, home to lakes, fields, and dense thickets. The landscape, which now appears lifeless, was once radiant with warmth. When researchers attempted to reconstruct the ancient ecosystem, a computer model revealed that 2 million years ago, the Arctic resembled northern Europe, with mild winters and short but fertile summers. This discovery was more than just a sensation. It offered a window into an era when climate change was moving in the opposite direction, from cold to warm. Now, archaeogeneticists are using Greenland data to predict how nature may change in the future, as ancient DNA has become a direct witness to the planet's past experiences with global change. Particular attention has been drawn to the question of whether a life form predating modern humans could have existed among this flora and fauna. Although no human DNA has been found, some researchers believe this discovery is nevertheless linked to evolution. After all, the presence of complex animals and stable ecosystems in northern latitudes proves that migrations of ancient species may have occurred much earlier than previously thought. Perhaps the first human ancestors were already following climate change, moving northward, where the land still retained warmth. Scientists acknowledge that this discovery is not just a scientific fact, but a philosophical revolution. It demonstrates how fragile our understanding of time and place is. 2 million years ago, long before humans began building cities and temples, life was already thriving in those lands. A warm wind stirred the grasses, and animals whose descendants have long since disappeared walked along the shores of ancient lakes. Each extracted DNA particle became like a letter from the past, where not a single word was written by man, but each bears the trace of the Earth's breath. Today, the samples are stored in cryogenic storage facilities under constant temperature control. International laboratories continue to analyze them, attempting to reconstruct a map of the ancient world. Perhaps, very soon, new genetic reconstructions of previously unseen species will emerge based on this data. Greenland has become an archive where nature itself recorded its history without ink or paper. This discovery reminded humanity that the planet's memory runs deeper than our cities and civilizations, and that ice molecules may hold not just life, but the answer to how it begins and how it survives time. Unknown civilization of Amazonia. In the heart of the Amazon jungle, where the silence of a sea of green had reigned for centuries, archaeologists made a discovery in 2022 that changed our understanding of South American history. Using laser scanning technology known as LiDAR, the outlines of enormous cities complete with streets, squares, and straight roads stretching for tens of kilometers were discovered beneath the tree canopies. These findings revealed the existence of a highly organized civilization in ancient times, capable of planning, constructing, and managing space on a scale previously unattributed to Amazonian peoples. The study was conducted by an international team of archaeologists from Bolivia, Germany, and the United Kingdom. They explored remote areas in the lower reaches of the Madidi River, where humidity and vegetation had concealed the land for centuries under a dense canopy of foliage. When the first LIDAR results appeared on screens, the scientists couldn't believe their eyes. Distinct geometric shapes emerged beneath the tropical foliage, rectangular platforms, roads connecting settlements, and gigantic mounds laid out along precise axes. Many of these structures resembled cities with well-developed plans, where central squares surrounded residential areas and ritual structures. The age of the structures, determined from soil layers and carbon deposits, was approximately 3,000 years, making them older than many known South American cultures. This discovery shattered the old stereotype that the Amazon had always been merely the home of nomadic tribes. It became clear, long before the Incas and Mayans, there existed a people here who knew how to subjugate space and create engineering structures that required teamwork and precise calculations. Archaeologists have called these settlements the megacities of the tropical world. Their streets ran in straight lines oriented toward the cardinal directions, and roads connected the cities in a network spanning hundreds of kilometers. Some sites were terraces up to 15 meters high, protecting residents from seasonal flooding. They contained stone platforms, likely used for rituals, and round structures for gatherings. All of this points to a complex society capable of managing resources and sustaining food production in the rainforest environment. The most surprising finding was the presence of irrigation canals and drainage systems. These engineering structures were constructed with a precision comparable to modern hydraulic engineering projects. The canals connected natural reservoirs, ensuring a constant water supply to the settlements. Analysis of soil microlayers revealed that the inhabitants used a soil enrichment technique, creating so-called dark earth, a mixture of clay, ash, and organic matter that maintains fertility for centuries. This method still lacks a full scientific explanation and remains a mystery to agronomists. In some places, LIDAR imaging revealed enormous mounds and circular fortifications over 300 meters in diameter. These may have served as defensive structures or sanctuaries. Traces of dwellings and hearths were discovered inside, as well as the remains of pottery with unique patterns. The ornamentation does not match that of known cultures in the region, suggesting a distinct artistic tradition. Some vessels are decorated with symbols reminiscent of star charts, suggesting that the ancient inhabitants of the Amazon observed the sky and linked the movements of the stars to the cycles of nature. The most astonishing thing is that after this civilization's departure, the forest quickly engulfed all traces of its presence. Over the course of several centuries, the stone streets and squares disappeared beneath thick vegetation, and the memory of the people who built them faded. No written sources or myths about them survive. This makes the discovery even more puzzling. Who were these builders? And why did their world vanish so suddenly? Scientists are considering several theories. The first is a climatic catastrophe. Perhaps a series of droughts or floods upset the balance between land and water, leading to the city's abandonment. The second is internal decline. The complex social structure may have succumbed to the pressure of population growth and resource loss. But there's a third, far more intriguing theory: deliberate abandonment. Researchers have found evidence that many structures were abandoned carefully, without signs of destruction, fire, or violence. This suggests that people abandoned the cities deliberately, perhaps following religious prophecies or shifting cultural ideals. Archaeologists are currently continuing their surveys, and each new region of the Amazon yields fresh discoveries. According to preliminary estimates, several hundred such complexes may be hidden beneath the forest canopy. Scientists call them lost geocities, emphasizing that this is only the beginning of a new chapter in the study of human history. After all, if a developed culture existed in the heart of the Amazon, this means that civilizations could have arisen independently in different parts of the world, following their own laws. These cities, hidden beneath the foliage like shadows of a bygone world, remind us that nature can conceal humanity's greatness better than time. And when scientists gaze upon the green sea from above, they know, beneath this silent veil lies a past that has yet to tell its story. Megastructures under the Sahara, in the southern Nubian desert, where the sand seems endless and the sun makes the air clear, Satellite images taken between 2021 and 2024 revealed what were initially thought to be natural formations. However, detailed analysis revealed that beneath the layers of sand lay hundreds of pyramidal and circular platforms built with astonishing symmetry and aligned with precise astronomical axes. This discovery became one of the most significant archaeological events of the decade, challenging previous understandings of who inhabited the vast expanses of the Sahara and when. Researchers from France, Sudan, and Egypt joined forces using remote sensing data, infrared images, and 3D terrain models. Initially, they wanted to pinpoint the boundaries of the ancient Nile riverbeds, but regular shapes emerged on the screens: straight lines, square bases, and concentric circles. During subsequent desert expeditions, the archaeologists confirmed that artificial structures, up to 10 meters high and over 50 meters in diameter, were indeed buried beneath the sand. Their structure differed from the known pyramids of Kush or Meroe, and their shape was more reminiscent of platforms on which rituals could have been performed. The most striking thing is their age. Radiocarbon dating of fragments of charcoal and baked bricks found at the base of some of the platforms revealed that they were built approximately 6,000 years ago, long before the Sahara's climate finally turned it into a desert. This means that here, in a land that today lacks water and vegetation, there once existed a sophisticated culture capable of constructing monumental structures. It is possible that this civilization predated the Nile kingdoms and influenced the emergence of early Egypt. Some of the structures are shaped like perfect squares, oriented strictly according to the cardinal directions. Others are stone rings, laid with mathematical precision, and several burials have been found within them. But unlike classical pyramids, there are no corridors, sarcophagi, or inscriptions. Everything suggests that these complexes served a ceremonial rather than funerary function. Their alignment with the stars suggests that the builders possessed astronomical knowledge and used the structures as observatories. Archaeologist Mohammed Al-Faqi, one of the project's participants, noted that in some areas, the sand preserves traces of old paths leading from the platforms to dried-up lakes. This may indicate that the settlements were located near bodies of water that later disappeared due to climate change. Along the edges of the complexes, archaeologists found pottery fragments and flint tools, indicating a continuous human presence. Analysis of the designs on the shards revealed motifs similar to those found in ancient Libya and Chad, suggesting connections between these distant regions. Some platforms were found to be constructed from stones transported from distances of up to 30 kilometers. Each block weighs over several tons, making the structures a technical achievement requiring teamwork and planning. How the ancient builders moved such stones without metal tools or draft animals remains an open question. Researchers believe they used a system of rollers and wooden levers, but there is no evidence to support this. In 2024, a team of Sudanese archaeologists conducted the first limited excavation of one of the sites. Beneath a layer of sand, they discovered a stone foundation lined with limestone slabs, and in the center, a depression containing ash residue and traces of organic matter. Chemical analysis revealed the presence of aromatic resins and wood oils, suggesting ritual fires. Ceremonies related to the worship of heavenly gods or the sun may have been held here. Among the many mysteries, one evokes particular awe: the perfect preservation of the geometry. Even after millennia, battered by winds and sandstorms, the angles of the platforms remain virtually unchanged. This testifies to the incredible precision of ancient engineers and the fact that their calculations were based on a thorough understanding of the proportions and stability of the soil. Scientists note that modern modeling programs cannot explain how such structures withstood erosion for so long. Gradually, researchers began to notice a pattern. All the discovered megastructures form a chain stretching along the old riverbed of the Wadi Hawar. This riverbed once connected Central Africa with the Nile Valley. Perhaps a network of cities and sanctuaries united by a single culture existed along this ancient river. If this hypothesis is confirmed, African history will be forced to acknowledge the existence of a civilization that flourished long before the Egyptian pharaohs. Work in the region continues today. Archaeologists are using drones to create 3D maps and calculate the precise coordinates of all platforms, but physical access remains difficult. Heat reaches 50 degrees Celsius, and the sand constantly shifts the terrain. Each expedition lasts only a few days, during which time the scientists attempt to extract as much data as possible before the wind once again obscures their traces. The megastructures beneath the Sahara have yet to reveal all their secrets. No one knows who built them, why, or why these people disappeared. But in every slab, in every line of these stone rings, one can sense the hand of an intelligence equal in skill to their contemporaries on the banks of the Nile. When satellites fly over these sands again, their cameras capture the shadows of ancient structures, as if the desert itself remembers the era when people who could speak to the stars lived here. Roman temple near Naples. In 2024, while laying underground utility lines in one of Naples' older neighborhoods, workers stumbled upon fragments of stone slabs with clearly carved Latin inscriptions. More than 10 meters beneath modern buildings, archaeologists soon discovered the remains of an ancient sanctuary, a temple dating back to the time of Emperor Claudius, built nearly 2,000 years ago, and almost completely preserved beneath layers of ash, clay, and time. This discovery caused a sensation throughout Italy, as beneath the city's bustling streets, over which millions of people passed, lay an entire architectural complex connected to ancient baths and marble galleries. Initial research revealed that the temple was built in the mid-1st century AD during the heyday of the Roman Empire. Its walls were lined with white marble, and the floor was tiled with mosaics depicting scenes from myths related to the sea and fertility. This suggested that the sanctuary was dedicated to Neptune, the patron of sailors and fishermen, as Naples, located on the coast, has always been inspired by the Mediterranean Sea. Archaeologists found altars, bronze lamps, dolphin figurines, and amphorae with inscriptions indicating offerings. The main mystery was the remarkable preservation of the architecture. Despite the earthquakes and eruptions of Vesuvius that destroyed Pompeii and Herculaneum, the temple survived. Its roof collapsed, but the lower chambers remained intact. Scholars believe the building was buried under the collapse of neighboring buildings in the first centuries after the eruption, which is what saved it from destruction. An alabaster bas-relief was discovered inside a temple niche, depicting a god in a chariot pulled by seahorses. The delicacy of the work is astonishing. Every detail is carved with a precision uncharacteristic of provincial workshops. When archaeologists began clearing the floor, they discovered a hidden staircase beneath the mosaic, leading to a subterranean chamber. There lay ceramic vessels containing oil and ash residue, as well as bronze plaques with names and wishes, possibly left by pilgrims seeking protection before embarking on a voyage. Remarkably, the air in this subterranean chamber remained almost dry, allowing delicate decorative elements and even traces of paint to be preserved on the walls. Naples, ancient Neapolis, was one of the busiest ports in Italy during Roman times. Therefore, the Temple of Neptune became not only a religious center but also a place where trade treaties were concluded and oaths sworn before sea voyages. Stone benches engraved with the symbols of merchant guilds were found in one of the rooms. This proves that the sanctuary also served social functions, uniting faith and economics, ritual and contract. Among the finds, a bronze bowl with engraved letters indicating the date of the sacrifice, the 3rd year of Claudius's reign, was particularly noteworthy. This rare artifact allows for a precise dating of the construction. Scholars believe that construction occurred concurrently with the expansion of the port of Misenum, and the temple served as a symbol of the city's protection from sea storms. But the most astonishing discovery came later, when researchers used ground-penetrating radar. Beneath the temple floor, they discovered another chamber, a vaulted crypt connected to a canal leading to the sea. It contained statues, carefully stacked, as if hidden. One of them bore an inscription reading, "Keep the secret, and the gods will protect you." This phrase gave rise to numerous speculations. Perhaps the temple was the site of secret rituals associated with marine cults that existed alongside the official religion. Archaeologists carefully began to uncover artifacts, jugs, lamps, and fragments of fabric decorated with gold thread. All of this points to the priest's high level of skill and wealth. Particularly striking were the gold rings found in a niche next to the altar, each engraved with various symbols of waves and shells. It is believed that they were sacrificed before departure, as a sign of loyalty to the sea. The discovery of the temple has sparked enormous interest among historians. Many believe it is more than just a religious monument, but rather a testament to the remarkable resilience of Roman culture, which managed to survive beneath the layers of time. Some scholars believe that an entire religious quarter, a network of underground sanctuaries connected by galleries, may lie beneath Naples. Indeed, near the newly discovered temple, ground-penetrating radar reveals the presence of several other voids, possibly halls for ablutions and meetings. Today, excavations continue under the supervision of the Italian Ministry of Culture. The area is fenced off, allowing access only to scientists and restorers. Each discovered fragment is carefully preserved and sent to laboratories, where specialists restore the ancient colors and textures. Plans call for the creation of an underground museum where visitors will be able to see the temple as it was 2,000 years ago. A Roman temple near Naples has become a living reminder that history doesn't disappear. It merely falls asleep. And sometimes, a chance blow from a shovel is enough to awaken it from a 1,000-year slumber. Beneath the noise of the modern city, where cars hum and trams jingle, echoes of ancient chants continue to resonate, and perhaps one day they will be heard again. Stone megaliths in Arabia. On the vast plateaus of northern Arabia, where the wind seems to erase the traces of time, archaeologists made a discovery between 2021 and 2022 that changed our understanding of the early history of the Middle East. More than 1,000 gigantic megalithic structures, rectangular and circular platforms known as mustatils, were discovered among the rocks and sand predating the Egyptian pyramids by several centuries. These stone complexes stretched across the desert for hundreds of kilometers, forming a network of ancient ritual centers created by people who inhabited this land more than 7,000 years ago. Researchers from Saudi Arabia, Germany, and Australia joined forces to map these mysterious structures using satellite imagery and drones. From above, they appeared as giant rectangles stretching tens of meters, often oriented strictly east-west. Excavations revealed that each megalith consisted of a long stone enclosure containing altars and ritual pits. Some of these contained animal remains, mostly sacrificed cattle. All indications are that the mustatils were places of worship associated with the cult of rain, fertility, and ancestors. The age of the structures was determined by radiocarbon dating of bones and charcoal found in the central niches. The results revealed an incredible antiquity, around 6,000 years BC, long before the emergence of the first cities in Mesopotamia and the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. This discovery proved that even in the Stone Age, the inhabitants of the Arabian Peninsula were creating large-scale religious centers that required teamwork and engineering expertise. Each mustatil could reach over 500 meters in length, and its construction required the movement of tens of thousands of stones. Scientists are amazed not only by the scale, but also by the architectural sophistication. The stone walls, up to 1.5 meters high, were laid without mortar but maintained with impeccable precision. Some structures show signs of secondary reconstruction, indicating centuries of use. Reddish traces of paint remain on the interior surfaces, likely symbols or signs depicting animals and celestial bodies. Similar designs have been observed in other areas of northern Arabia, where rock carvings depict hunting and dancing scenes, confirming that these lands were a center of ancient art long before the advent of writing. The geography of the megaliths attracted particular attention from researchers. They often stretch along old riverbeds and intermittent lakes, indicating the important role of water in the lives of these peoples. Once, thousands of years ago, Arabia's climate was significantly milder, and steppes and savannas stretched where today's deserts are today. Local tribes cultivated crops, grazed livestock, and likely gathered at the megaliths for communal rituals associated with the rain cycle. Archaeologists have found traces of burnt bones and ceramic vessels containing resins and oils used for sacrifices in some mustatils. In several cases, stone steles engraved with symbols resembling schematic representations of the sun were discovered inside. It's possible these sanctuaries serve not only for the worship of natural forces, but also for the veneration of celestial gods. One of the most impressive discoveries was the discovery of a central complex consisting of several dozen megaliths arranged in a line stretching over 8 kilometers. Their orientation coincides with the sunrise during the vernal equinox. This suggests that the ancient inhabitants used them as an astronomical calendar, recording the changing seasons. Such knowledge of celestial cycles suggests a sophisticated observational system and the transmission of knowledge from generation to generation. Scholars note that the construction of such large-scale structures cannot be explained without an organized society. This required not only labor but also planning, resource allocation, and a knowledge of geometry and astronomy. This challenges the old notion that the peoples of Arabia were exclusively nomadic hunters. It is now clear that they possessed a culture capable of uniting people around shared rituals and symbols. Some researchers suggest that mustatils may have been the prototypes of later sanctuaries and temples in the Middle East. Their structure resembles ritual enclosures found in Mesopotamia and the Sinai Peninsula. It is possible that the region's later religious traditions arose from these ancient cults. Today, the megaliths of Arabia are recognized as one of the largest archaeological complexes in the world. Research continues, Some structures are still hidden under sand, and others are accessible only by air. Saudi authorities are creating a protected area to protect the finds from destruction. Scientists hope that future excavations will help understand how these enigmatic builders lived and what prompted them to abandon their sanctuaries. But one thing is already clear. The desert, which we have become accustomed to considering lifeless, was once a place of power, where people built open-air temples and conversed with the sky through stone. And now, 7,000 years later, their voices are heard again, in the rustle of sand, in the shadows of megaliths, in the echoes of an ancient world returning from oblivion. Sunken temples of Tamil Nadu, off the coast of southern India, in the state of Tamil Nadu, where the waves of the Bay of Bengal gently lap the ancient shores, lies the city of Mahabalipuram, renowned for its rock-cut temples. Following devastating cyclones in 2021, the ocean temporarily retreated, and beneath the surface, divers discovered stone foundations and columns extending into the sea's depths. This discovery confirmed centuries-old legends. 7 majestic pagodas once stood on this site, and only one survived, the other 6 having been swallowed by the sea in ancient times. The investigation began with a joint expedition of Indian archaeologists and naval engineers. Initially, the underwater structures were thought to be merely natural features. However, as the research progressed, it became clear. The blocks were hand-laid, perfectly aligned, and the foundation lines matched the orientation of land-based temples built in the 7th century. LiDAR scanning and echolocation revealed the outlines of an entire complex. Walls, staircases, altars, and columns arranged parallel to the coast. At a depth of approximately 8 meters, archaeologists found statues of lions and elephants, executed in the same style as the surviving Pallava temples. Scientists believe the flooding was caused by a powerful earthquake and subsequent tsunami approximately 100-200 years ago. Marine sediments covering the rocks preserved them from destruction, so entire sections of ancient architecture can be discerned underwater today. Divers describe the place as a ghost town, where coral-covered walls and vaults seem to continue to exist in a different environment. Interestingly, the myth of the 7 pagodas existed even in ancient times. Sailors and travelers, including authors from the Roman Empire, mentioned a shining city off the Indian coast, where temples were reflected in the water like stars. The city was believed to be so beautiful that the gods, envious of its grandeur, commanded the sea to claim it for themselves. Only one temple remains standing as a reminder, the very one known today as the Temple on the Shore. Excavations on land and underwater revealed that the architecture of the sunken structures matches the style of early examples of the Dravidian school. The temples were carved from solid granite and decorated with carvings depicting scenes from the myths of Shiva and Vishnu. One of the underwater bas-reliefs, partially cleared of silt, depicts Shiva's cosmic dance, a rare scene found only in Pallava-era temple complexes. Geological studies have confirmed that sea levels in the region have indeed risen by more than 2 meters over the past 2,500 years. But the nature of the destruction suggests not just gradual flooding, but a sudden catastrophe. Some columns have been pushed sideways, as if by a shockwave, and statues have been toppled in one direction. A powerful earthquake may have eroded the coastline, causing a landslide, and part of the city was submerged within hours. In 2022, the Indian Institute of Oceanography sent deep-sea robots there. They were used to take detailed photographs and 3D maps. One of these clearly shows stepped platforms and the remains of a sanctuary that once stood on the coastal terrace. All this confirms that a large portion of the ancient city, once a center of art, crafts, and religious rituals, has indeed been preserved beneath the sea. Locals still tell legends about hearing bells ringing underwater at night when the sea is calm. Following the discovery, archaeologists began systematic dives, but due to strong currents and turbidity, visibility rarely exceeded a few meters. Despite this, several fragments of carved blocks and statues were recovered, now housed in the Chennai Museum. Analysis revealed that the granite bears traces of artificial polishing and processing with iron tools, confirming the high level of craftsmanship of the artisans of that era. Scholars believe Mahabalipuram was part of a vast coastal civilization that existed along the coastline of southern India. It likely housed a sacred complex in ancient times, attracting pilgrims from various kingdoms. Ships from southern ports brought offerings to the sea gods, and priests performed ceremonies uniting the elements of water and stone. This is why temples were built at the very edge of the surf, where the ocean meets the land. Archaeologists now call this region Indian Atlantis. It reminds us that India's history goes back further than previously thought, and that ancient peoples already possessed the art of maritime architecture. Underwater, among coral and sand, foundations, staircases, and altars still lie, and perhaps one day they will reveal a map of a city that the sea claimed but did not destroy. The sunken temples of Tamil Nadu have become a symbol of how myths can be reflections of reality. Where there seemed to be only legend, science has found stone, carvings, and memory. And now, when divers descend into the tranquil waters of Mahabalipuram, they discover not just ruins, but evidence that human creation can outlive even the ocean. Underground tunnels of Teotihuacan. In 2022, archaeologists exploring the ancient city of Teotihuacan in central Mexico reported a sensational discovery. Beneath the Pyramid of the Moon, one of the complex's main shrines, they discovered a system of hidden underground galleries extending tens of meters deep. These tunnels, filled with sedimentary rock and metallic deposits, turned out to be part of a meticulously designed engineering structure constructed over 2,000 years ago. The discovery transformed our understanding of the spiritual and technological might of the civilization that built this enigmatic city, which vanished long before the arrival of the Aztecs. The study was conducted using cutting-edge ground-penetrating radar and 3D scanning techniques, allowing the internal structure to be revealed without damaging the surface. The images revealed a complex network of passages located beneath the central part of the pyramid. They resembled underground chambers with passages leading deep into the earth, and in places formed circular halls. Scientists hypothesized that these spaces may have been used for rituals associated with the underworld, the realm of the gods of death and rebirth. When the first chambers were opened, archaeologists discovered objects that forced them to rethink the history of Teotihuacan. Among the finds were obsidian knives, jade figurines, shell jewelry, and ceramics depicting serpentine creatures. But of particular interest were the metallic microparticles covering the walls and ceiling. Analysis revealed that these were compounds of mica and pyrite, minerals that reflect light. When the researchers shone flashlights into the tunnel, the walls sparkled, creating the illusion of a starry sky. All indications are that the ancients deliberately covered the walls with these materials, transforming the underground space into a semblance of the heavens. This combination of symbolism is no coincidence. In Teotihuacan cosmology, the underworld was considered a mirror of heaven. Here, gods were born and died, and each cycle of time began with their return from darkness. For this reason, pyramids were built not only upward but also downward, creating a reflection of sacred geometry in the depths of the earth. Scholars believe that the tunnels beneath the Pyramid of the Moon were part of a vast underground network connecting all the city's temples into a single ritual system. Archaeologist Sergio Gomez, one of the project's leaders, noted that the walls of the galleries are covered with a thin layer of clay, likely applied specifically to retain moisture and provide soundproofing. This creates the impression that these rooms may have been used for ceremonies requiring absolute silence. Stone throne seats, carved directly into the rock, were discovered in one of the halls. This likely served as a site for priests conducting rituals symbolizing the rebirth of the sun and the beginning of a new cycle. At a depth of approximately 18 meters, researchers discovered strange crystalline formations. Instrumentation revealed that they contained rare minerals not found in the surrounding area. This suggests that the materials were brought from afar, possibly from other regions of Mesoamerica. Remarkably, even after centuries, the underground vaults retained their microclimate. Humidity and temperature remain virtually constant, allowing the artifacts to be perfectly preserved. Teotihuacan had previously been considered a place where architecture was subordinated to the idea of the cosmos, but now it has become clear that the city's sacred geometry extended not only horizontally, but also in depth. Some tunnels are located precisely beneath main roads and plazas, following their direction. This coincidence could not be accidental. Perhaps the inhabitants believed that in this way they connected the earth with the underworld, creating a path for the spirits of the dead. One hall, dubbed the Chamber of Mirrors, attracted particular attention. Its walls were covered in mica, polished to a mirror-like shine. When the archaeologists turned on the lights, the reflections multiplied, creating a sense of infinite space. Perhaps this is where ceremonies symbolizing the soul's transition from one world to another took place. This is supported by a nearby find. Bronze bells and traces of incense burned over 1,500 years ago. Scientists call the underground complex the heart of the city of the gods. It demonstrates that Teotihuacan's builders possessed not only engineering expertise, but also a philosophy that linked matter and spirit. For them, architecture was a language through which to communicate with the divine. Every wall, every passage had symbolic meaning, and even the metals that reflected light were part of this code. Work beneath the pyramid is currently ongoing. Due to the fragility of the vaults, archaeologists are making extremely slow progress, sometimes no more than a meter per month. Everything is being documented using laser scanning and robotic cameras. Scientists are confident that somewhere deep within the pyramid, a central sanctuary may lie, the place where, according to legend, the gods first created the sun. If found, it will open a new chapter in the history of Mesoamerica. The tunnels of Teotihuacan remain a mystery, hidden in the darkness of the earth. And perhaps these subterranean chambers still echo with rituals performed centuries ago, when people believed that light was born from the depths, and that the sky and the underworld were two sides of a single eternal mystery. Genetic discovery in the dolmens of Brittany. In northwestern France, among the hills and damp meadows of Brittany, stand ancient stone dolmens, erected long before the Egyptian pyramids. They are over 5,000 years old, and for a long time, it was believed that they served solely as funerary monuments. However, in 2023, a team of archaeogeneticists conducted a study that shocked the scientific world. From bone samples found at the foot of these megaliths, they were able to extract and decipher ancient DNA, revealing an unexpected truth. The dolmen builders shared common genetic roots with peoples of the eastern Mediterranean, who lived thousands of kilometers away. The study began with excavations near Karnak, home to one of the largest concentrations of megaliths in Europe. A team of archaeologists and biochemists collected dozens of bone and tooth samples from ancient burials located near the dolmens. Until this point, it was assumed that the region's population developed in isolation, but genetic analysis revealed that some of its ancestors originated from areas corresponding to modern-day Turkey and Lebanon. These data supported the hypothesis that maritime contacts existed between the Middle East and Western Europe during the Neolithic era, long before the advent of writing and states. The results were published after a year of research, with each sample tested using new sequencing methods capable of reconstructing genetic sequences even from severely damaged molecules. A laboratory at the University of Cambridge succeeded in identifying DNA regions responsible for bone structure and calcium metabolism. These features were similar to samples found in the area of ancient Troy and the coast of Asia Minor. Scientists concluded that small groups of settlers may have migrated along sea routes, bringing with them knowledge of stone construction and a religious tradition that later spread throughout the Atlantic. In addition to genetic similarities, archaeologists found material evidence of these connections. Among the finds at Karnak were jewelry made from seashells, a type found only in the eastern Mediterranean. This suggests an exchange of objects and, likely, ideas between the regions. The dolmen builders were apparently not simply erecting tombstones, but creating sacred spaces reflecting cosmological beliefs about the world and the afterlife. Analysis revealed that the people buried beneath the megaliths belonged to communities where kinship ties played a special role. Several generations of a single family were buried within some dolmens. This suggests a cult of ancestors, where each new stone became a symbol of the memory and strength of the family. Genetic similarities between groups in different regions of Europe confirm the existence of an ancient network of contacts, which can be called the Stone Route, a route connecting the Atlantic coast with the eastern seas. One of the most surprising findings of the study concerns the genome structure associated with light perception and vitamin D production. These genes in the dolmen builders showed signs of adaptation to the northern climate, indicating rapid adaptation of the settlers to new conditions. This discovery provides an example of how ancient migrations not only moved people, but also accelerated evolutionary change within populations. Scientists emphasize that this is not a case of mass migration, but rather a long process of cultural exchange. People arriving from the east may have brought stone-cutting technologies and ritual practices, which local residents adapted to their beliefs. This is how a unique megalith building tradition emerged, spreading from the Mediterranean to the British Isles. The project also examined the DNA of modern-day Brittany residents. Remarkably, their genetic code still contains fragments of the ancient lineage found among the dolmen builders. This demonstrates the continuity of human history. The genes of the people who erected the stone sanctuaries live on in their descendants who inhabit the same land. Today, the dolmens of Brittany have acquired a new meaning. They are no longer perceived as silent stones. They are now repositories of memory, connecting eras. Each slab and each entrance is oriented toward the sunrise, as if the builders left a message addressed to future generations. Their culture has disappeared, but its trace remains in our genes, in the shape of our faces, in the tones of our skin, and in our desire to discover our origins. The genetic discovery of dolmens is a reminder that ancient peoples were not isolated. They traveled, formed alliances, and exchanged beliefs and art. The stones standing in the French fields are not just ruins, but evidence that civilization arose not in a single place, but in thousands of hearts connected by sea, wind, and shared memory. Excavations of the Neolithic city of Atlim. In 2021, on the coast of Israel, near what is now Haifa Bay, archaeologists from the University of Haifa made one of the most astonishing discoveries of the last decade. Beneath a layer of sea sand and silt, they found the remains of the ancient city of Atlim, dating back approximately 7,000 years. This site once stood on dry land, but as sea levels gradually rose, the city was buried underwater and forgotten for millennia. Its streets, houses, and wells have been preserved in remarkably good condition, becoming a kind of underwater Neolithic museum. The discovery was discovered by chance. After a severe storm, fishermen recovered fragments of pottery and stone tools from the seabed. An expedition to the site discovered house foundations made of large limestone blocks at a depth of 10 meters. It was later discovered that these structures formed an entire residential area with narrow streets and a central square. The discovery's age was determined by carbon dating of wood remains found in the fireplaces. This dated back to the late Neolithic period, when the inhabitants of the eastern Mediterranean were already engaged in agriculture, livestock breeding, and maritime trade. The main discovery of Atlim was its water supply system. A stone well, over 5 meters deep and lined with carefully crafted slabs, has been preserved in the center of the settlement. The water was found to be fresh, despite having been submerged for millennia. Scientists believe it was this source that made the city a vital coastal hub. Ceramic vessels containing remains of wheat, barley, and lentil grains were found nearby, indicating a developed agriculture and food storage system. Particular attention was drawn to the carved wall fragments. Some blocks depict symbols reminiscent of waves, the sun, and boats. These may be the first signs reflecting the worldview of a maritime people for whom the sea was not a threat, but a part of their very being. Archaeologists speculate that the inhabitants of Atlim were engaged in fishing, maritime trade, and perhaps even short-distance navigation along the coast. In one of the houses, human remains were found buried under the floor, a custom typical of Neolithic cultures in the Levant. This fact points to Atlim's connection with other settlements in the region and confirms that people of that time lived in large families, passing down houses from generation to generation. Tools found nearby, stone sickles, hammers, and grindstones, demonstrate a high level of craftsmanship. All were made of basalt and flint brought from the northern plateaus of Galilee. The city turned out to be not only an economic but also a religious center. In one of the buildings, which archaeologists dubbed a ritual house, they discovered a round stone platform with a pattern laid out in pebbles. In the center were burnt animal bones, traces of charcoal, and a vessel with traces of red ochre. According to the researchers, rituals related to fertility and the protection of the home were performed here. When underwater cameras illuminated the streets of Atlima, it became clear that the city was laid out according to a plan. Houses are arranged in rows, with narrow passages between them leading to a central square. This urban planning suggests social organization and collective labor. Atlima may have been part of a network of settlements along the coast, united by trade and cultural ties. Paleoclimatic data indicate that sea levels began to rise sharply approximately 6,000 years ago. The city was threatened with inundation, and its inhabitants likely abandoned it when the waves approached too close. No evidence of violence or fires has been found. Everything points to a peaceful exodus, to people who simply left, leaving behind their homes and belongings. They may have migrated higher up the slopes, escaping the encroaching sea. Modern technology has made it possible to create a 3D model of Atlim, allowing one to literally walk its streets. Scientists note that this is one of the few sites where the complete archaeological context of a Neolithic settlement has been preserved. Every discovered object, from bones to grain, helps us understand what the everyday world of ancient people looked like. Today, Atlima has become a symbol of how the sea can preserve the past better than any library. Underwater, among sand and coral, walls still stand, enshrining the silence of 7 millennia. This city is a reminder of the fragile balance between man and nature, of how civilizations are born and vanish, but their traces remain even where the sea has long reigned. Arctic Sanctuary in Yamal. In 2024, in the far north of Russia, on the Yamal Peninsula, archaeologists made a discovery that caused a sensation across Eurasia. In the tundra, amid moss, ice, and ancient rivers, they discovered the remains of a sanctuary dating back more than 5,000 years. Here, among stone circles and wooden idols, rituals were once performed by ancient hunters and shamans who lived in an era when the Arctic was not yet a kingdom of permafrost. This discovery not only shed light on the spiritual life of northern tribes, but also proved that religious centers existed in the far north long before the first cities emerged. It all began with a geophysical expedition studying old lake basins and riverbeds. In one area, satellite images captured strange ring-shaped structures resembling stone enclosures. When the archaeologists reached the site, they discovered a perfectly circular plateau about 50 meters in diameter at the top of a low hill, lined with stones and wooden posts, some of which jutted out of the ground at an angle, as if they had once formed a fence or ritual enclosure. Remains of charred fires and animal bones, mostly reindeer and elk, were found beneath a layer of peat. Radiocarbon dating showed that these remains were over 5,000 years old. But the most astonishing discovery was made in the center of the circle. There stood a wooden idol, almost 2 meters tall, carved from larch. Its surface was covered with geometric patterns and symbols reminiscent of the sun, moon, and human figures. Despite the harsh conditions, the wood was preserved by the mineral-rich bog soil. When archaeologists carefully cleaned the idol, they revealed that it had once been painted with ochre and charcoal. Such finds are known only in the Urals and Siberia, but never before had one been found so far beyond the Arctic Circle. Soil analysis revealed that the site had been in use for many centuries. Each layer of peat contained traces of fires, ashes, and tools, stone knives, ceramic shards, and fragments of amulets. This suggests that the sanctuary served not just as a temporary campsite, but as a permanent cult center to which generations of people returned. Perhaps they came here at the summer solstices to offer offerings to the sun gods and the animals on whom life depended. On the eastern edge of the plateau, archaeologists found several stone slabs carved with symbols resembling combinations of lines and dots. Researchers are unable to decipher their meaning yet, but speculate that they may have been calendar markers recording the changing seasons. When sunlight struck the slabs at a certain angle, the shadows formed precise patterns. This geometry indicates a profound understanding of the movements of the sun and stars, something that would seem unlikely for ancient hunters. Of particular interest was the composition of the bones found around the idol. Among them were deer skulls with carved holes and traces of bone and copper jewelry. This indicates complex rituals in which animals were sacrificed not for food, but as a symbolic offering to the spirits. Some skulls were placed in shallow pits and covered with charcoal and ochre, which, according to ethnographers, symbolized the transition between worlds. Scientists believe the sanctuary may have belonged to a culture that predated modern northern peoples, possibly the ancestors of those who later became the Sami and Nenets. Their mythology preserved images of earth, wind, and animal spirits, and the symbols found on the idol are remarkably similar to those used on shamanic drums even today. This speaks to an incredible continuity of traditions that has carried them through millennia. Climate data confirms that Yamal was significantly warmer 5,000 years ago. Birch trees and shrubs grew here, and herds of wild reindeer grazed. People lived in small clans, hunting and fishing. The sanctuary likely served as a place for alliances, initiations, and sacrifices. Its central idol served as a mediator between people and the spirits of nature. When the discovery was presented at a conference in Arkhangelsk, experts dubbed it an Arctic Stonehenge. It proved that even in extreme latitudes, Neolithic people created complex sacred structures and possessed a sophisticated worldview. The idol and several stones have now been transported to a laboratory for conservation, and the area has been declared an archaeological reserve. The Arctic sanctuary in Yamal has become a symbol of the resilience of human faith. It demonstrates that people strove for the sacred even in places where nature itself seemed hostile. Amid the wind, snow, and permafrost, they built circles, lit fires, and gazed at the sun, believing it returned each year for them. And millennia later, this fire, hidden in the cold earth, flared up again, this time in the torchlight of archaeologists who restored the ancient world's voice. Each of these discoveries reminds us that the past is far from dead. It breathes beneath the sand, beneath the water, beneath the stone, and even beneath the ice. A city buried beneath the sea, temples hidden within the pyramids, ancient genes preserved in layers of ice, and megaliths erected long before writing. All these are not simply testaments to antiquity, but a reflection of the human desire to understand the world and leave a mark. Archaeology today is not a search for gold, but a conversation with eternity, where every artifact discovered becomes a word in the language spoken by history itself. And perhaps the most important discovery is yet to come, one that will remind us who we are and where we came from.